Hello and welcome back. I don't know if you can tell from my shirt, but today we are going to be talking about Percy Jackson. So the first four episodes or first half of the show are out now on Disney Plus. So I kind of want to go through what we've seen so far, talk about what we've seen in the episodes, what I'm expecting in the next few episodes, what I've liked, what I've wanted more of maybe. I also kind of want to talk about a lot of controversy or other opinions I've seen on the show and discuss my point of view as an avid book reader. So there might be a little bit of drama. I'm sorry, but yeah, some of it has to be said. Also, as an avid book reader, I definitely want to point out a few just little things that meant so much to me as a childhood fan of Percy Jackson that I maybe some people might have missed or not have seen. But I have been waiting for this show since I was like 10 years old. So this is very near and dear to my heart. I'm really excited to be talking about it. So let's get into it. So the first episode literally starts with Walker reciting the first page of the first Percy Jackson and the Olympian book, which is just so amazing to me. I think it really sets a standard for, we are doing a book accurate adaptation. We want to stay true. We want to include things that we know readers love. To me, that is just amazing. Again, like I said, I have been waiting since I've been like 10 for a book accurate adaptation of Percy Jackson, and to finally be seeing it is just so heartwarming and amazing. The show also starts us off with a flashback of young Percy, which does set this precedent of we're going to be seeing a lot of flashbacks. We're going to be getting a lot of background context of who Percy is and what he's gone through to get to the point that he is right now. And then we get to meet Grover. I think Aaron's portrayal of Grover in the show so far has been just spot on, literally perfection. He does such a great job and they are so sweet together. A little tidbit from the books: in this scene you can see Percy and Grover playing mytho magic, which I don't remember being super big in the first book, but I know other side characters later on, if you know who I'm talking about, love this game. So I think we'll be seeing more of this. And then we see the flashback with Percy and his mom at the Met. I think this flashback is actually super important for the rest of the show. We see Sally talking to Percy about what makes a hero and what makes a villain a villain. And this concept is kind of a reoccurring concept throughout all of Percy Jackson, really. She's kind of telling him, why do you think Medusa was a villain? Like, what makes you think that? And we do see this again in episode 3 when they visit Medusa and we hear her story, she might look like a monster, but is she really a monster? And kind of the same with, Perseus. You're supposed to think he's the hero. He's supposed to be the hero, but is he a hero? What makes him a hero? And this flashback kind of opened that conversation, I think, for the rest of the show. And I think we'll be looking back at this theme and seeing a lot more of this throughout the show, especially in the finale and as we get towards the end of the show. We also get to see Riptide for the first time in episode 1, and I love that just like in the books, it's just a regular capped pen, nothing super special. So we do see our first monster in episode 1, Electa, and I think that her design is so cool. When like her wing or her jacket becomes her wing or whatever, however they transform that, it just blew me away. And I think that the show does a really good job at continuing this through the rest, at least through the first 4 episodes. I think all the monsters we've seen, the design is just so good. This is just a little silly thing, but that's literally Rick Riordan sitting in the corner in this scene. We love him. We love him. And then Percy goes home. One of the only things I wish was a little bit different about the show is that in the book, Gabe is literally the worst. Like, borderline abusive, just so terrible. And I feel like in the show he's more just kind of lazy and stupid. If what I know happens in the book happens in the show, I think that the book gave a lot more justification and reason for it happening. Maybe we'll see more from him and see more about how terrible he truly is to Percy and Sally. But I think this scene for me, he more just seemed like a burden. But right after we are introduced to Gabe, we are introduced to Sally in the current time period for the first time, and her introduction song being Logical by Olivia Rodrigo, iconic. Literally, Sally is iconic. I love her. have nothing but good things to say about Sally Jackson. We also get to see the blue food, which, if you're a book fan, you know, it was just such an iconic part of the books. I'm so glad they included it in the show. We also get to see Percy and Sally and their cabin in Montauk, which was really, really cool and kind of gives some context. Sally talks about that being the place where she met Percy's father. Of course, it's like a cabin on the beach, so it makes perfect sense. I also think that this scene at the cabin shows a lot of Percy's personality and just how sassy and funny he really is as a character. For example, when Sally's like, "Do you know why we stay here every year?" He's like, "Because it's close to the sewer and we can stay here for cheap." So funny. So was such a self-aware king. Also, when she's like, "I met your dad and he wasn't like any man I've ever met before because he wasn't a man, he's a god." And Percy's like, "God? Like Jesus?" Walker does such a great job at just encapsulating Percy's sarcasm and humor. I love it. And then we get to camp. And I don't know who decided to make me cry this early on in a show, but I don't appreciate it. I was literally in tears. This was such a hard watch, especially with the little speech Sally gives Percy at the end telling him that he's enough, he's singular, he's not broken. Why did that break me? Why was I shitting, crying, throwing up hearing that? And then having Percy watch her, I mean, as far as he knows, die. So heartbreaking. So sad. And now we're at camp, and kind of the main thing I want to say is just the visuals at camp are gorgeous. Okay, this first scene with Mr. D, I just need to talk about it because I saw some people clowning on the product placement of the Diet Coke on TikTok, and I'm just like, the knowers? No. I'm sorry that you're not a knower. I'm sorry that you don't know. But for anyone who doesn't know, so you don't embarrass yourself, in the books, Mr. D is sent to Camp Half-Blood and he can't have any alcohol. And Zeus has made it so that if he tries to drink any alcohol, it turns into Diet Coke. So there's a purpose. It's not just out of the blue product placement. The people that get it, get it. And I'm sorry that you didn't get it, but now you do. So we also get to meet Luke for the first time in Camp Half-Blood, and Charlie does such a great job throughout this episode at establishing a relationship between him and Percy that you just want to work. You see Percy finally being accepted, and especially by an older peer, somebody that he can kind of look up to, and you just, in your heart, want it to be good. And knowing what happens just breaks my heart. One of the standout performances for me so far in the show has been Dior playing Clarice. She did such an amazing job at just embodying what it means to be a child of Aries. You can feel her anger and her just mistrust really of everybody, especially Percy. She embodies what so many of these half-bloods are going through. They're really just trying to please their parents and make their parents notice them and stand out. And in the way she's doing it, it might be a little violent, it might be a little scary, but she's a child of Aries. That's what's gonna happen. And the anger that you feel when Percy breaks her spear is phenomenal. I think we can infer that this spear was given to her by a godly parent, and we established like how important these gifts from the godly parents are. And when that gets broken, you can just feel that rage and anger and sadness and all those emotions behind her. She just did it for me in this episode. I am so excited to see more of her, hopefully in the next season. I think she is phenomenal. I have nothing but good things to say about her. In this episode too, we get to meet Annabeth, who is played by Leah. Such an amazing Annabeth. She is doing such a great job through this whole season so far. I have loved her performance as Annabeth. Luke talks about how Annabeth is always ahead. She's always 5 steps ahead of everybody. And I think that when she pushes Percy into the water and he gets claimed, We can really see that, and it's really setting up her character for the rest of the season. She's so meticulous and everything is planned out. She knew that Percy was the son of Poseidon before anybody else did, really. I think that was a great kind of addition to this episode. So in episode 3, we get to see Percy getting his quest. And when we talk about book accuracy, the Oracle, I don't know how the directors did it, but they got inside my little brain and put exactly how I pictured it as a 10-year-old child onto the big screen, because that was just amazing. We also get to see another magic item from a godly parent, which are Luke's shoes. And the way they designed these in the show, I thought was super, super cool. How the laces kind of combine to form the wings. Just very visually pleasing for me. Then the kids get on a taxi and they're off. Was not the taxi ride I was kind of expecting, but I understand they have to keep, they can't add every single little detail. But yeah, I also like on the bus when Percy's like, why can't we fly? And Annabeth has to explain to him that because Zeus thinks you are stealing his lightning bolt and could shoot you out of the sky. They do talk about Thalia and her tree a lot in her history. I think it is definitely setting up for us to hopefully see her, which gives me great hopes. Not only does this episode do a great job at talking about who Thalia is, but it also establishes this super, super family close-knit relationship between Annabeth, Thalia, Luke, and Grover being kind of their satyr. And I think this is going to make what happens with Luke just hit extra, extra hard with not only Percy, but Annabeth. I think they are gearing us up for some major heartbreak. And then in episode 3, we do get to meet Medusa. I think this portrayal of Medusa is so good. Kind of goes back to what Percy's mom was saying. She's like, I'm a monster, but do you know why I'm like this? It's just so good. I also want to highlight the conversation specifically that she has with Annabeth. She tells Annabeth, I wasn't like you, I was you. And this comes into play in the next episode, which I will be talking about. This is also the first time we really see the trio, or specifically Annabeth and Percy, working together to get something done. Annabeth hides, puts the hat on, cut the head off. Character growth, love it. We also see this scene of Percy holding Medusa's head, which is so reminiscent of the Perseus statue that he is looking at with his mom when they have the conversation about why is Medusa a villain. So we see Hermes obviously delivering his package, and for non-book readers, I think this might be a little bit confusing because obviously they haven't talked about how Olympus is in New York City yet, or where he's going, what's he doing, but as book readers, we know he's delivering the package to the gods on the 600th floor of the Empire State Building. And then just the reveal that Hermes is Lin-Manuel Miranda. I was just like, oh my God, this is so funny. For people especially who haven't seen any context about the show, haven't seen any of the casting, this would have been a shocker, because it was a shocker to me. And I've been keeping up like it's been my job, okay? So, and then to start episode 4, we get the most heart-wrenching flashback. Oh my gosh, especially now with context, we know that Percy is the son of Poseidon. We know that Sally knows. And just Percy being a little kid, not trusting, not wanting to do it, and seeing her like panic, knowing you have to know this, you have to get this done, just shows how much she cares about Percy and how much she knows what his life could and will be like, and just her trying to prepare him as much as she possibly can as a mother to see her son succeed is just so nice to see. And then we see the flashback change into another Chronos dream. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but this is another part of the books that I'm so happy we're seeing, and it's Percy's nightmares about Chronos that he doesn't really share with anybody. No one knows that this is going through his head. He doesn't even know what it means. He still doesn't know who this is or the higher power that is happening. So I think that it's really great that the show's including this. This episode also kind of gives us some world building information. There used to be a lot more centaurs, and we hear Grover talk about Pan for the first time, which is super, super exciting. If you've read the books, obviously we know he's going to try to fulfill that quest as well. So it's really great that they're introducing it this early on in the show. I did see a lot of people say that they didn't like the pacing of this episode in particular, and I honestly have to disagree. I think that for a show, this episode is doing it all. It's building up these characters, it's building up this world, and we get action. I think a lot of people thought that the action was kind of short. Personally, I don't need a lot of action to be entertained. I thought that this episode did a great, fantastic job of keeping me entertained, keeping me invested in these kids and in the story, which I understand if you need action to do that, that's fine. But for me, I thought it was still fantastic. We get to see two more monsters in this episode, the mother of monsters, Echidna, and the Chimera. I do like one change that I appreciate from the books to the show is that in the books, the Chimera was a pink poodle. In the show, I appreciate that they did not make it a pink poodle and they made it this little yappy little rat dog, which I don't know, to me, it just fits a lot better. I think it was a great choice that they made. Okay, so now we're gonna get into Athena and how much she really hurt Annabeth in this episode, honestly. And I want to point back to how Medusa had said to Annabeth, I wasn't like you, I was you. Depending on which story you are listening to, the Greek or Roman one, the show kind of combined them. So assuming that what Medusa told us is 100% accurate, she was punished not for anything she did, but for the actions of a man, specifically Poseidon. And we see the exact same thing happen in this episode. Annabeth gets punished. Her quest could just fail right now, and it's really Athena has the power to help her and to help her quest, and instead Athena ignores her, not because Annabeth did anything wrong, but because Percy, a man, a son of Poseidon, offended her. Annabeth did nothing wrong. Annabeth has been so loyal to Athena for her entire life, and Athena just ignores her. Athena's not a girl's girl. With that being said, I am still such an Athena girly, and I'm sorry to offend, but this episode made me literally so angry. And then we get the fight scene in the St. Louis Arch. A lot of people were saying they wish this fight scene was longer, and for me, I'm kind of like, it would be cool, but how do you make a fight scene last longer if it's in this like tiny little space, which in order to be book accurate, it had to be in this tiny little space. I thought with what they had, it was great. I think the Chimera, the design of the Chimera looked really, really cool. I think we can see just how much Percy is suffering and how he is willing to fight this thing in this conditions to save his friends and the people he cares about, which is just adding on to his character and what a hero he really, really is. I also think it was super cool to see when he jumps. You can see the little wave, and the switch to the first person perspective was super, super cool to me. Percy gets to learn that he can breathe underwater, which is super cool and probably going to be super, super helpful for the rest of the show. As for the second part of the season, moving on to what I think is going to happen next, I think that in the next episode we should be meeting Ares, which it'll be really interesting to kind of see their interactions, especially to see if he mentions Clarice at all, knowing the fight that him and Clarice had at camp. It'll be interesting to see if that's brought up at all. One of the scenes I am most excited for is to see Percy and Ares fight on the beach. I think they're kind of trying to save his most impressive battle for that battle because Ares is literally the god of war. And we will be seeing the kids go to the Lotus Hotel. Honestly, I've been seeing so much on TikTok and Twitter about people saying if it doesn't live up to the movies, then the show is a failure, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, but I can't get on board with that. I think the show has already blown the movies out of the water. And I think that expecting the same thing from a show that's coming out however many years later is just a little bit silly. I hope they don't do the same thing. I hope they don't play Lady Gaga, honestly. Sue me. I hope they don't play Lady Gaga. But I hope we see a different twist on the Lotus Casino. I'm sure whatever they do will still be amazing. I personally hope it's not the same thing we've already seen. But yeah, so that was my thoughts on the first half of the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. Let me know what you thought, if there's anything you agreed with, anything you disagreed with, or let me know what you are hoping to see in the next few episodes. Again, I am so happy with this show. I hope everyone is enjoying it as much as I am. If you like my video, it would mean so much to me if you dropped a like and subscribed. I am going to be trying to make a lot more YouTube content in 2024, so come along with me on that journey. And I love you guys. I'll see you next time. Bye.